Welcome, everybody. My special, super special guest is the awesome and amazing Mary Kelly, PhD, CSP, U.S. Navy commander, retired. I think I got them all. Did I get them all?
That's exactly it. That's all I got. I got nothing else.
Very important to say how credentialed and awesome you are. And let's just get right to it. Co-author of the fantastic new book, Why Leaders Fail.
Yes.
So you're a lifelong leadership expert, as well as some of the other fabulous things you do, like a noted economist and a fabulous productivity guru and all of these things. But let's talk about leadership, because that's what the book is about. And where do leaders fall down? What are some of the 7 deadly sins that you and Peter talk about in the book?
We actually tried to get the 7 deadly sins of leadership, once we took the data and condensed it down. So this, unlike a lot of leadership books, is not just what I think. It's not just what Peter thinks. We took data from over 10 years and over 100,000 employee surveys. Peter and his team do assessments all the time. And then we also took data from 10,000 leaders. And then we took military data. So we took a lot of data and then condensed it down. And we found that everything fell under 7 main categories of failures. Now, here's what's interesting, is most people, when they're put into a leadership position, nobody expects to fail. Nobody says, oh gosh, I'm going to get promoted and then I'm going to fail miserably for the entire world to see.
I'm going to have a spectacular flame out in about a year and a half.
That's it. Nobody thinks that. And then you say, well, how in the world are boards putting people, well-qualified people, into jobs, and then they are having that flame out after a year or 18 months or 2 years or 5 years? And so we've looked at the data and then looked at what happens and why this happens. And we came up with 7 main points. And one of them, if you've been following the news, is probably not a surprise. And it is what happens when confidence turns into arrogance. Arrogance is
I have no idea which political candidate you're talking about right now.
I think it's all of them at this point. But it's a difficult thing, because you as the leader want to come in and look confident and commanding and as though you're in charge and engender trust. And yet, if you go too far over that line, then that confidence becomes arrogance and people simply stop trusting you. So how you walk that fine line is, I think, very difficult. So many leaders struggle with that. And people also struggle with, let's say you were working with a team and all of a sudden you're all peers, you're all engineers together, and then you get promoted and now you're the boss. Well, the skill sets that made you a great engineer are not the same skill sets that make you a great manager or leader of people. And you think, well, that's okay. I'll just, these are my friends. They'll do a good job for me. And that's not what happens. It is, after all, a job. And that's what some people forget.
Absolutely. Well, and it's funny. It's almost like there's a curve of trust, right? Because you don't have enough confidence, or you're wishy-washy, or you're perceived as weak. People don't trust a weak leader. And then there's that zone of strength in the middle, right? Healthy, assertive, etc. And then, as you're saying, is you tip over then from strength into, or strength and confidence into arrogance, and then the trust goes down again. So it's almost like there's that little sweet spot in the middle. You can't be too weak and you can't be too strong. It's Goldilocks leadership. Am I right?
It is. It's exactly Goldilocks leadership. And it's the same with most of the categories we found. You're right. That, for example, the trust is another factor. So you say, well, of course people would trust me. Why wouldn't they? And most people will trust you until you give them a reason not to. But what's amazing, of course, is that trust goes that fast. And as soon as you do one thing that one person sees, or their perception is such that they say, wow, I think I just saw what I think I saw. I thought I saw a putty tat. And now that becomes the thing. And that trust issue, especially right now with big corporations, is, let's say all of a sudden you have a board meeting and they say, by the way, we're having a product recall, and it hits the news in 4.5 minutes. By the time you get back to your office, your people are standing there with their phones in their hand wondering why you're not telling them information. And then they don't trust you, even though you didn't have any information to give them. But information flow is huge in terms of trust. And it's not just external factors, but it's how we communicate with the people in our teams and what they're doing, what they're not doing. Are they listening? Are they not listening? By the
Yeah,
way,
absolutely.
Can you hear my little puppy protesting? Can you hear her protest?
The dog?
Yeah. Can you hear it at all from your end?
Very faintly, but
Okay.
it just adds a charm of animal husbandry to the whole interview. It's not a problem.
She wanted to make sure she got into that listening.
That's right. That's right. Ooh, ooh.
Yeah, she's upstairs. She wants to be near mom.
Of course.
And that's part of the trust thing too is, all of a sudden you're promoted to this new environment, and all of a sudden those people you worked with all the time, they got to have lunch with you every day, and you got to hang out after work or all this. Well, now you have more responsibilities, and they see, well, gosh, all of a sudden David's not having lunch with us. He's too good for us. Or, oh, David's off at some secret meeting, and they're not, well, what happened at the meeting? Oh, nothing, don't worry about it. And it may be something very mundane, but now they feel like you're not telling them what's going on.
Sure. And there are these boundaries, right? So just like the dog is in a separate room with the door closed, no one likes boundaries. No one likes being cut off from the people that we used to be close to.
Or they perceive that they're being cut off. And so some of it is like, you can't believe I just came back from a 3-hour miserable budget meeting where we spent, 3 hours discussing $1,000 that, oh dear God, just, kill me now and spend the money. I don't care anymore. And they think, well, there's no way you can possibly be spending that time. So it's not just communication that we do get. It's also the communication we don't get and how we perceive that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I know that you do some keynote speaking for corporations, associations, and groups. You work with some big companies, obviously all that fabulous work with the government, the military. How do we, looking at the small business, because I know that another area of your expertise is around entrepreneurship and small business. So as a small and solo business owner, sometimes we're not leading people internally, because we can have a very small team, or maybe even in some cases no team, but we are in a leadership position. So we're leading our clients, we're leading our prospects, we're trying to lead our industry. Sometimes we're leading nonprofit membership groups that we're on the board of, or any of these kinds of things. Looking at the micro level, where you and I operate typically as entrepreneurs ourselves, what were some of the things that you felt really crossed over from the reasons that leaders fail in the big world and in big kind of corporate, government, military settings? What can we take away as small and solo business owners around the leadership tasks in front of us?
David, that's a really good question. So as you know, I do love my entrepreneurs. I think entrepreneurs are the way of the future. I think more and more people are going to be working for themselves as contractors, as freelancers, whatever. And we have to manage ourselves, but we also have to manage
all those failed leaders that are out on the street. Welcome to entrepreneurship. Come on down.
And what they don't realize is those things that got them fired are the things that are going to make their life as an entrepreneur very difficult. And that is, are you communicating well with your clients, your suppliers, your people? And by communicating well, as my friend David Newman says, your people are not tired of hearing from you. They're just tired of hearing about you from you. And that's gold, David. You said that years ago, and I've kept that on my wall, because we sometimes feel that communication is, hi, let me tell you how fantastic I am. Or, hi, let me tell you about my product. Or, hi, but in reality, many people want a relationship when they do business. People do business with people they believe, like, and trust. And they've got to have at least 2 out of the 3 of those components to work. So for my entrepreneurs, I ask them, I say, and I need to do more of this as well. These are the things that I think a lot of us struggle with, is that we're very good at finding new opportunities for business that we don't always keep track of our loyal clients. And we don't always go back and provide value. We don't always go back and say, hey, I found this great article by Lori Guest. I found this terrific article by Jill Scheffelbein. I found this great book by David Newman, and I thought you should have it. And so that idea of communicating, keeping up the communication, keeping up the relationship, facilitating that believability, the likability, and the trust factor, that you're thinking of them even when they're not paying you. I think that's key.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely huge. Absolutely huge. Well, what do you think, both macro level and micro level, or really any level, what do you think is the number one biggest challenge for leaders today? What's the big, what we know, the big monster in the closet?
The big monster, I think, in the closet is many leaders lack vision. They literally have no internal vision of where they want to go in the future. People get promoted into a job. And if you look at negotiations right now, the NFL is doing all these negotiations for players. And they say, well, it's between this team and this team. And the big factor, of course, is the money. Well, wait a second. There's a lot more to a job than just the money. And if you're a leader and you're put into that situation and all you're worried about is your paycheck, then you're going to fail. And that's just true for pretty much anybody. As a leader, if you're not looking out for the people around you and the people who work for those people and the people who work for those people, your team is going to fail because it can't help but fail even with the best people there. And that key is making sure that you have a vision, not just, I'm not talking that vision that the company prints up on a poster, puts it on a wall, you walk by it every day and never read it, but a real vision for how you're going to get your team where they need to go, how you're going to develop them on a personal as well as professional level, how you're going to help them achieve more either with you or someone else. And this is one of the things that I learned in the military. In the military, you're supposed to take your people and train them for their next job, their next level of responsibility. And I was talking to one of my execs, and he said, but if I train my people, then they'll go someplace else. And I said, well, you should be happy that they move on. And even if it's not with you, that's okay. And that's a really hard concept to get across to people, that you should spend resources on someone who might leave you. Because the other part of that, of course, is we know people don't leave jobs. They quit their boss. They quit their boss because they're tired of feeling unappreciated. They're tired of not being listened to. Their opinions don't matter. They ask for feedback all the time. They don't do anything with that feedback. They feel as though they're not really providing a value. They want to feel important at work. They want the work to be important, but their boss or whoever they work for, or their direct supervisor, negates their contribution. And as a result, and Gallup says this all the time, we have around 70% of American workers who are at any time disengaged in their work.
Yeah. Well, getting back to your point about the fear about training people and they leave, I forget which management pundit said this, but it's brilliant. It's, don't be afraid that you train them and they leave. Be afraid that you don't train them and they stay.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like, no, I have a workforce here. They're never leaving and they're completely untrained.
And they're obsolete and they are not moving forward. And
exactly.
This is one of the other things I tell my entrepreneurs is, if you can only hire one person, hire somebody as different from you as possible.
And that's tough to do.
It is, because likes like likes.
Right.
And I explain this to my military groups. I say, so if I'm going to hire somebody and I've got a Navy person, an Army person, and an Air Force person sitting in front of me, because I was Navy, I'm going to naturally think that the Navy person is going to be the easiest for me to work with. Because when I say I use certain language, I still use some military language, I know I do, and I use that around the Navy person, they understand it. And we've got the same corporate culture. But the reality is, having two of us in business who think exactly the same way doesn't promote growth, and it doesn't promote new ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and another thing that I've just jotted down here as you were talking about people who are promoted to a leadership position and then they're just floundering a little bit. It's about, I think it's two different attitudes about leadership. One is, okay, I've just been promoted. It's my job to fill the position, right? And kind of figure out what's required of me. I think the more successful people, and I'd love your take on this, they're not interested in filling the position. They're interested in defining or redefining that position, that they're in charge of the position. The position is not in charge of them, and they're not looking for like a roadmap or, well, gee, what do I do now that I've been promoted? But it's people who take that promotion and use it to make a positive impact on the company, on the department, on the results.
That's exactly right. And a lot of that has to do with making sure that you're not so selfishly focused that you forget why you're there, number one. And then number two, I'm reminded as you were talking of, there was a man who used to do the landscaping. And he was, I don't know, about 175 years old. But he showed up early, he stayed late, his stuff was meticulous, and everything was just perfect. And I asked him one day, I said, how is it you do this with, I'm horrible with landscaping, I'm horrible with plants. My house is where plants come to die, apparently, as it turns out. And he said, because these are living things that are entrusted to me. And I was like, wow. That's fantastic. Here is this gardener landscape guy who has such pride in his work, and he owned it. I mean, nobody's going to tell him that wasn't his stuff. That was his stuff. And this is what some people show up, and they want a job that is that is easy, that they don't have to think too hard about, so they can go home. And entrepreneurs don't work that way. If you're an entrepreneur, you wake up every day going, what am I going to do today? How am I going to help my business? What new thing do I need to think about? You have to constantly be innovating. And in large bureaucracies, sometimes if you're an innovator, you kind of get beat down. And this is the caution I'd like to give my leaders in big organizations is make sure you're really listening to people. And even if you can't implement that idea right now, let them know that it was a valuable idea, that it would work. It just takes a long time for certain things to happen, because otherwise when people don't feel like their opinions are considered or their ideas are taken up the chain, then they stop providing ideas. I was fond of saying at one place I worked, I said, yep, I have ideas, and they just shoot them down like people shooting clay pigeons out of the sky. And I really felt that way. And after a while, guess what? After a certain amount of time, I just didn't offer any more ideas. They said, well, how do we fix this? Of course, I had good ideas on how to fix it. Well, according to me. And I stopped offering because I felt completely devalued. Now, does that mean I should have stopped offering opinions? No, of course not. But if you're a boss, you have to be really careful about making sure that your people are not discouraged. And not just discouraged, but they stop participating. It can be tough.
Yeah, very much so. So as we're wrapping up here, I've got a couple of final questions for you. First question is, what advice do you have for someone who has just been promoted to a leadership position for the first time?
Were they working there before and now
they were?
Okay. So the first thing they have to do is pull the team together. And they have to say, I am now in this job and some things are going to change. And that is going to be a little awkward for me, and it might be a little awkward for you, but this is what I promise. I promise I will communicate with you. When I know something, you will know it, number one. Number two, I'm going to make mistakes, and I need your help when I make mistakes. And I need you to feel as though you can tell me when I make a mistake. Because that person who's promoted, sometimes they go, whoa, I'm promoted, I'm now the new boss. Well, they may have been neck and neck with somebody else, and they maybe just got the tiniest little bit of vote that got them in that job. And they may not know it, but they could be on probation. So they need to make sure that they coalesce the team, some of whom may not be very excited that they're in that new job. So you have to coalesce the team fast and say, look, I know I don't have all the answers. I know that I'm going to make mistakes. I'm asking for your help now. I need feedback, and I want honest feedback. Now, keep in mind, everybody's going to go, yeah, and they're not going to do that. But if you at least open the door for that, then when you ask questions later, then people will be more receptive. You have to make sure that they feel like you're going to give them good and honest information and transparency. If you're the new person, and this is again one of the things people struggle with, and all of a sudden you're in all these meetings, you're pulled away, and people go, well, wow, they're never here. They're always doing this. Post your schedule. Let people know where you are. Post your cell number. Make sure people can get hold of you if they need to. Make sure that you respond to people, because otherwise they will feel as though they're farther away from you. And if there's the tiniest bit of jealousy or resentment and it feels like you're pulling away, now they're going to say that you're arrogant. Now they're going to say you've crossed the line, even if you're completely well-meaning and trying to just satisfy all the new requirements.
Yeah, wow. All really, really great ideas. So last question is, tell us how people can stay connected to you, how they can get their fresh, minty copy of Why Leaders Fail, and how they can just stay connected to Mary Kelly World.
Hey, thanks so much. I'm at productiveleaders.com. People can pre-order the book, Why Leaders Fail, at productiveleaders.com. It will be out on Amazon around the middle of April. We're very excited about this. And we have several bonuses that, of course, I completely stole the David Newman idea on bonuses. So when people go to my website and get bonuses, I know he's brilliant, this David Newman guy. That they get over $1,100 worth of bonuses by getting this book. So the book ideally is worth its weight in gold, but definitely the bonuses are worth it as well, thanks to my friends.
There you go. Awesome. Mary Kelly, thank you, thank you, thank you. I cannot wait to get my own personal copy of Why Leaders Fail. I thought it was out. I mean, I was ready to pre-order 10 copies, and I'm on Amazon. I'm going, what's going on? So we go to your website. We go to productiveleaders.com. That's the best place to get our hands on a pre-order and the bonuses and all the goodies that come with it.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely,
Awesome.
yes. It's very exciting.
All right, my friend. Thank you, as always, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, David. Have a great day.